I am Delia Folk, your host, and today we are talking to Chelsea Goldman of CF Goldman. But growing up in New York City was great. It was, you grew up really fast, I think. That was the only thing, because you had access to a lot of things and cultures, which is great, and also has its downfalls. But it also gave me access to a lot of things. It gave me access to programs in fashion. So I would take after-school programs at FIT and Parsons and study. I also had a moment where I was really into cake making, so I did that. But you can kind of access everything, which is really nice.
Yeah. You decide to go to London for college. Tell me about what did you learn there?
So I'd say London College of Fashion is more similar to FIT, and St. Martin's is more similar to Parsons. Although they're both really, really different if you just had to compare them. London College of Fashion is much more engineering based. It's much more about pattern making and actually making the product. So I think I learned a lot about craft there. St. Martin's is how crazy can we possibly make something, and pushing your creativity in the best way. So you learn a lot from both. I also worked while I was over there, so I think that was really helpful to see how houses worked in Europe and understand that, and also just get a more global perspective of fashion, because there was so much. Also, when I was there, it was kind of this height of British fashion. We had Christopher Kane, Mary Katranzu was coming out of school. It was so Gareth Pugh was the height of it, and it was just this really, really cool time for British fashion when all these young emerging designers were starting. Peter Pilotto was starting, all these cool young brands. So it was an exciting time to be there.
Okay, so you got there, and then tell me about your first internship. How did you get it, and what was it?
So it was Narcisco Rodriguez. I feel I just emailed someone. I knew someone through a friend of a friend, and I emailed them and was I want to come in, I want to work. I was 18, and I was I want to come see, and I'll do whatever you need me to do. It was a really small team in a small house, so it was interesting to see how something works in New York. Also such someone who's been around for such a long period of time. Narciso actually was in my mom's Parsons class. And the design team was a team of 4 plus 2 interns, so it wasn't this huge team. So you always had access to everyone. It was, and you're always doing things and running around. I'd say it's important to stay humble about the whole thing and not think that you're going to come in there and run the company. You need to go in there and be I'm willing to do whatever you need me to do, because that's an important attitude to have. I feel school, fashion school is this weird thing where you're taught how to be cool, is kind of how I always said it. You're always they were always okay, what's your personality? What's your brand? How are we going to recognize you? So that was always really important. And there was it was an amazing creative environment where especially in London, and at that time it was everyone was even our teachers, were old designers, and they would go out and there's this huge London underground party scene that everyone was kind of a part of too. So it was everyone was just very creative, and there was it was Paper Magazine was coming over and throwing parties for our school, stuff like that. It was just a very fun environment to be in, and I think that was really nurturing. And I met a lot of people that are doing something similar to what I'm doing now, so it really gave me a background of people to talk to about everything. But the internships are a much more real world experience. You kind of really learn how a design house works. I don't think I ever realized how you really put together a collection until I worked at a house, and you saw okay, this is how you have to lay everything out. It's very different than working to a project deadline. That's not a real world thing.
Yeah.
So kind of whatever you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that working for Celine was very interesting. It's owned by LVMH, which is a huge corporation. So I think that they had such unlimited resources, and that was kind of interesting to see, because it was never how can we make things on a budget? It was always how can we make things in the most beautiful way possible. So there was really we explored so much, we like developed so much. It was just like you had kind of free reign to do what you wanted to do. And I think that's also kind of a European thing too, though, really like working that way. They also work much more communally. So like there's a design director, but everyone's kind of working as a team effort. Like you really listen to everyone in the team and they're really all designing together. Whereas in New York, it's really more like you have the design director and they're telling everyone else, and everyone else is kind of more in production than they are in design, I would say. It's a mix. I mean, it can be like art for print, like certain like art that I've looked at and I'm like, ooh, I'm kind of into that. Also, we look at a lot of like old 18th century paintings for the corsetry, so shapes and corsets come a lot from that. And then also vintage clothing. I go to stores and I get like genuine corsets, and so we take those apart and see, and then we'll also have a model come over one day and we'll like layer all of the vintage pieces we've gotten and like try to redo them and put them in different ways, and like how would this look backwards, how would this look if was only half of it, so you can kind of have a real model of how it will actually look rather than just sketching. So it's always helpful. Every day is a new fun challenge. I think that in different parts of your career, there are a lot of different challenges. I think that when you're starting out, it's getting your foot in the door and like, how do I, first of all, have a vision? Like you're a young designer, how do you, what do I have to say for the world? Like what am I actually like here, why do they need me in this oversaturated fashion world? So once you kind of figure out that, I think it's like figuring out then how do I access the stores and how do I access the customer? So are you direct to market? Are you going to a store, and how do I even get the stores to come and see me? And then once you have the stores, which is kind of at the stage I am, how do you, keep yourself exciting for their customer, and how do you stay in the stores? Relentless about it. I think I was probably really annoying. I went to a CFDA talk with Rupal from Saks. She's the creative director, I think, right, for Saks. And she was talking to a group of emerging designers, and she was saying, Kouchner and Knox, they emailed her every week for a year, and we're like, we would love to come in. We'd love to come in. And finally she was like, okay, come in. Like, you're annoying me, come in. So they came in with like 5 dresses and showed it to her, and that's how they got into Saks. And I think that's a lot of the stories of how young designers get into these stores, is you have to be in everyone's face, and they have to kind of see you. I think keeping a consistent vision is really important for them, so they know that they're not buying into one season of a designer, but they're buying into a career. But yeah, a lot of people kind of are like intimidated by it, and I think it's very easy to get people's emails nowadays. It's usually just something at Saks.com.
Right.
And you kind of just have to be in their face and not, be nice about it, but be aggressive and get what you want to get. And if, I did stuff where I had like a crappy studio set up with it was me and like 5 friends, and we worked all night to get the studio set up because we had Net-a-Porter coming in the morning, and that was like really important. And so we were literally running to Chinatown to get the racks at the 5 minutes before, things like that. The model wasn't coming, but then Net-a-Porter came to my like crappy 1-room studio, and like that's kind of how it starts and how it happens. And now we have a showroom that has taken over for us in terms of sales, and been very helpful, and it's a different game now because they have every store come in, so it's a new type of strategy. It's definitely a collaboration between the showroom and the brand. I think they know a lot. I think they come from a different perspective of like sales rather than design. I think you can't be pushed over, because I think that happens a lot where you're given so much feedback in a showroom.